Hello there, everyone. Welcome to There's Hope, the Twilight Zone podcast, number 500 of the Twilight Zone podcast that currently exist.
I thought you were saying this was episode number. I was like, dog it, this is episode 2. We've only done one other.
If we combined all the other podcasts that exist with this topic, it would be episode 500.
It would be, but we don't associate ourselves with them. They're from the bad universe. They're from the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, we are episode 2, right? That's
yes.
the current one. Remember the title of this episode we just saw?
Oh, I do, as a matter of fact. This episode is One for the Angels, Season 1, Episode 2 of The Twilight Zone, which aired on October 9th, 1959 on CBS.
And this was a prequel to Angels in the Outfield, right?
Yeah, but just a really weird one. But Joseph Gordon-Levitt is still in this because he doesn't age and can't die.
Well, yeah, of course. He has that superpower. He made a deal with death.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, how you doing, Davey?
I'm doing very well. How are you, Doggett?
I'm doing good, man. Just standing by the fireplace. You know, just roasting and toasting.
Well, you know what's great for a roasty toasty night is if you get told a story. So why don't I spin you a tale? Why don't I?
Ooh, by an open fire?
Ooh, yes.
Proceed.
So today's story follows Lou Bookman, played by Ed Wynn, who is a salesman in Pitchman who sells toys, ties, trinkets, little things of that nature, and all of the kids in his neighborhood love him. He's got a good life, it's a simple life, but there's nothing to complain about. He goes back to his office, and sitting in his office in one of the chairs is a man played by Murray Hamilton, who eventually lets our hero know that he is death, and at midnight that night, it will be Bookman's time, and he will have to go. Bookman says, I'd rather not die, so let's make a deal. He gets the information out of Death that, with extremely extenuating circumstances, a deal can be arranged. And Bookman says, I've always wanted to make the perfect pitch, do the perfect sell. And eventually, Death relents and says, fine, I will hold off on taking you to the afterlife until you make the perfect sell. So when is that going to be? Is that going to be like tomorrow, like next week? Like how long are we talking? And Bookman says, well, I don't know. It might be like next year, the year after that. I got to travel to do it, which obviously upsets Death very much, saying, hey, you are messing with the timeline. You are messing with the way that things have to go. This cannot happen. And if you're going to try and trick me, and if you are going to try and make it impossible for you to die, then fine, somebody else is going to have to take your place. And one of the neighborhood kids, this little 8-year-old girl, gets hit by a car and survives, but is being taken home to rest.
She looked very peaceful for being hit by a car.
Yeah, it is the nicest car accident I've ever seen.
Like, I wish a car accident left me looking like Sleeping Beauty as well. Like, she had her arms crossed.
Yeah, it was very serene. I think that's how all car accidents go down, actually. Because I have never properly processed the concept of death or tragedy and refuse to.
Yeah, it seemed like the proper way to go. Like, I would say, if all the children had to die, car crash, run over by a car, seems like the most peaceful, humane option right now.
Yeah, honestly, I should probably just get in my car right now and just start mowing some kids down. It'll be easy for them.
Oh, man. You have no idea the mercy. This is getting dark.
Yeah, this is going a little too far for this show. For a show called There's Hope.
There's
5 minutes in. But yeah, and that obviously distresses Bookman because he doesn't want this kid to die, and so he keeps trying to get Death to go back on the deal and just take him instead, but Death says, no, this is your bed, and you've got to lie in it. So Doggett, before we get to the final aspect of tonight's tale, what did you think of One for the Angels?
Well, this episode made me realize something really important.
Yeah?
Salesmen, content creators, we've existed for so long, and ties and whatnot. We've always been around, and we always will be. No, but this is a. I didn't picture episodes like this in Twilight Zone. I don't think that the title of our show, actually, when I think about Twilight Zone, and with this is I like a message of this, which the message really is, we gotta watch out for the kids, guys.
We gotta watch out for the kids, and also nothing you do is without consequence, and you can live your life as selfishly as possible, and that's fine. And that's one of my favorite things about the episode is that when Death realizes that he's been swindled, he just goes, all right, cool. There are consequences to your actions, and you have to live with them. And it's such a wonderful thing to realize that this world will allow you to be selfish and entirely self-centered and cruel to the people that you love, even if you don't necessarily realize it. There's nobody stopping you, but what makes people good and what makes people bad is their willingness and unwillingness to do those things, usually just because they don't think about the consequences. There is no malice in either of these men. There's no malice in Bookman trying to save his life. It's completely understandable. And there's no malice in Death saying, well, you screwed up my timeline and now I gotta do something else. These are people trying their best, and that's not good enough.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
There seems to be like a whole other thing where we can't conquer death, like humanity as a whole. We don't have the ability to conquer death.
Yeah.
But as we're learning more about people, maybe you can bargain. Get a heart from a 17-year-old, or a kidney, or the numerous ways billionaires are able to live to 100. Like, if you wanted to, if you truly wanted to, you could indeed, hold death at bay, at like specific consequences to yourself.
Yeah, or consequences to other people around you. There is a natural order to things, and until we figure out the great human conquest to conquer death, which I don't think we ever will, there is an ebb and flow to all of it. There's such a beauty to the natural world in this episode in a way that I don't often see, and maybe it's just because it has similar thematic elements, but it reminds me of a lot of a film like The Seventh Seal or other movies from this European crop of films around the 50s and 60s that really had a lot to say about spirituality and humanity and what it means to even be alive in the first place. I really love this episode.
There's an idea to the bargain, right? The last pitch.
Yeah.
What Lou wants. What do you think he like? We know he's bullshitting Death at that moment.
Yeah.
But to come on, Davey. We're both bullshitters. We're podcasters. It's in our blood. And but the idea is there has to be a kernel of honesty to the bullshit to be stable. Like, there has to be like a center of it that's real to like fool everybody else about the other stuff.
Yeah.
So in that moment, that pitch, what do you think Lou is talking about that pitch? What do you think what's that nugget of truth in there?
In what he wants to get done with his life?
Yeah, like what do you think? Do you think it's okay? It's gonna sound shallow. I think ever since we're kids, everybody has a fantasy in their head that kind of goes away a little bit, but we never let go. And the idea is, I think everybody wants to save a life. I think everybody has a thing inside them that people, before they go out, they want to know that they help somebody, right? They want to. At least that's what I believe. What are you thinking here, Davey?
I think that is incredibly accurate and incredibly wise. I think the great tragedy of the human experience is that most people do save lives, but I don't think they are given the opportunity to know that they do it, and I don't think they're given the opportunity to realize that they are the reason why the lives have been saved. That's why something like It's a Wonderful Life is such a powerful movie, because we get to take a look at how lives are saved without us even really knowing about it. And I think what Bookman wants is the chance to be great, to do that great thing. And the thing that he is wrong about is that he clearly already has done a great thing. He is beloved by the people in his community and make their lives better. He's a salesman
people like. Like, when in media has that ever existed?
It is never happened. He is just so charismatic and kind and warm-hearted that the thing that he is looking for, the answer to, was all of this worth it? Did I live a life that I'm satisfied with leaving behind? The answer is in those kids, and I think that's what makes this episode such a succinct and exact point at the tip of the pencil, so to speak, is, the love that he has been given by his community is the thing that shows that is the greatness.
That he didn't live an empty life like he was talking to death. Like he's telling death, like, I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. You think he believes that?
I do. I do think he didn't achieve what he wanted to achieve, but I don't think he knows what he wanted to achieve, honestly. I think he knew that he wasn't done, but I don't think he knew what he needed. And in this episode, over the course of this day, he figures out what that thing is.
He just wants to know these kids are right.
Yeah. And he somewhat selfishly wants to be a part of the reason why they're all right. And that is such a normal, okay thing to want. I really have no ill will towards that.
He also, there's an aspect of going out on his own terms, right?
Yeah. And I like that a lot. There is a lot of pain in tragedy and sudden things happening, where even if you've lived a long and good life, being told that, hey, you're gonna die. And he goes on about it. He goes, I got a cold once last year. I don't get sick. I'm fine. Like, my finger's a little, but other than that, I'm good. I take care of myself. And sometimes things happen. He's just gonna die of natural causes in his sleep.
Yeah, he looked good for 35. In the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sad, and it's beautiful in its own way. And if there is a world where everyone who departs us gets to have that experience of the day before it's their time being told, hey, make peace with it in the next 12 to 24, and then it's over. I think that would be a very beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think now is a good moment to talk about that last act.
Right. So, in a surprisingly really emotional and beautiful moment, not just for the show, but for syndicated television in the 50s, Bookman is on the steps of this 8-year-old girl's apartment with death and saying, please take me instead. Please take me instead. And Death says, no, I'm sorry, I can't. So Bookman sets up his little table and says, well, I'm gonna do a pitch. You never know. Sometimes I get night customers, even though it's 5 minutes to midnight. And he gives a 6-minute long, beautiful, impassioned pitch, selling the absolute hell out of his ties and toys and knickknacks to Death, and saying, hey, look at all this great stuff. And at the end he says, and you can have a one-of-a-kind product. You can have Lou Bookman for many years as a personal servant. He's great. He doesn't sleep much. He doesn't eat much. He only rests occasionally. He is the best. And by the time Death realizes that he has missed the midnight cutoff because of Lou's pitch, Lou says, yeah, and that was the perfect pitch. I did it.
One for the Angels, you'd say.
One for the Angels, yeah. And Death and him walk off into the distance at the end of Lou's life.
It still gives me chills.
Me too. And it's not one of those endings where every second of it shocks you, because I don't know about you, but as soon as I'm getting a little choked up now just thinking about it. As soon as he opens his little pitch stand, you know what he's doing. And it is
like, he got out there, he went outside, he was the last line of defense for this little girl, which is how it's often going to be for kids. Like,
yeah.
You may not know it, but an adult probably somewhere out there is the last line of defense before your ticket's getting punched.
Yeah.
And you might not even be aware of it, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and
I think the beauty is that a lot of them aren't, because they shouldn't have to be aware of that at such a young age. But also, what is really sweet about this is that it is explained very early on that Death can just kind of move wherever, because it's Death, it's not a person. So
yeah, doors don't stop him.
Yeah, so Bookman being there doesn't do anything. Death is hearing him out because he knows where this is going.
I mean, at first, but after a while, like, okay, these ties sound pretty good, actually. Like, I was getting my wallet out. Like,
yeah,
he was selling the shit out of those ties.
Yes.
Pigeons from across the sea carrying knapsacks in their necks, filled with thread used to create these beautiful ties you see before you.
Yeah, and so there is definitely that element of it, but also, I think if Death didn't, to some degree, know what Bookman was doing, he would have just walked past him. And if he didn't want to give Bookman that final chance to prove himself and atone for the mistake that he made, then I think he could have. And I think that is what is so powerful and beautiful about what this episode tries to do. Is it is about letting people fix the things that they do wrong and saying, hey, you fucked up real bad, and it is going to take a lot of work and a lot of selflessness to unfuck this, but it is possible, and I will give you the opportunity to do that if you so choose. And that is really sweet and cool, you know?
It really is. This I can see this episode really got to you, and as we're talking about it, I gotta admit, I'm remembering it more now. As like, man, there's something this that you don't see in anthologies too much. We were talking about it in the last episode, how people only remember the ending to the Twilight Zone. Nobody talks about Lou, and that's one of the tragedies, isn't it?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't need to talk about Lou.
No.
This is what he was supposed to do. He's supposed to look out for the kids. If he had nothing else in his life, he was a salesman, no wife, no family, no kids, except for the ones in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And when you're in a neighborhood like that, it's a community. And, we don't have that. We don't have things like that so much anymore, because in real life, the salesman is a vacuum salesman, and you slam the door on his face.
Yeah.
But I would want to live in my neighborhood.
Me too. So, then it gets to the question, how well do you think this episode held up?
60 years later?
Yeah.
I think this is a lesson that can't die.
I completely agree.
There's some, you don't. This doesn't rust. The quality stays the same. Whatever somebody felt 60 years watching this, I feel watching it. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. What says you, Davey?
I could not agree more. I think the only thing that didn't age well about this is that it is hard to believe that a salesman is that good of heart. But I think everything else about this aged like the finest wine and cheese platter. This episode really, really got to me and made me feel a lot of things, obviously, and it reminded me of the best parts of being a person and the best parts of living in a world with a lot of other people, and that is an incredibly rare and gorgeous feeling.
Yeah. And, what do you think, how important would you say, okay, now, we do love this episode, and it touched our souls emotionally. What do you think the effects this episode had on other media? Like, what do you personally think was inspired by something like this? In your head theory, nothing official.
Yeah.
What do you think somebody saw in this that led to something else in the future?
It's hard to think of things that connect to it in the future tense. In the past tense, definitely something like It's a Wonderful Life.
Final Destination?
A Life Less Ordinary, the Danny Boyle movie.
Ooh, speak more.
Which is a movie that nobody likes except for me, where Cameron Diaz and Ewan McGregor are these 20-somethings. Ewan McGregor kidnaps Cameron Diaz, and up in heaven there are angels that look down on them and are like, these two kids are supposed to fall in love and get together, and we have to make sure that happens. I would also say something like The Good Place. I think merging that blend of spirituality and decency and looking past the obvious flaws and the obvious blemishes and pains that someone has brought onto the world and saying, hey, you can still do good and do a good thing. So I think those are things that, even if they're not inspired by it, are in the same world and of the same, cut from the same silk, so to speak.
There's a movie called Fish Story that I really love. You ever heard of it?
Mm-mm. I have not.
It's like a anthology. It's a Japanese movie where a guy goes into a record store. A meteor is gonna hit the Earth in like a few hours. Everybody's ready for the end of the world, and he goes into this record store that's still open, and the shopkeeper there is, acting like, the world's gonna be fine. Like, what are you talking about? He picks up a record, and he says, this record's gonna save the world. And we go into the various stories of like various people and how their independent acts come together. And most of them don't know each other, and they don't meet each other. It's just their independent actions could save the world. And it's not this, but there's a nugget in there that humanity's not doomed. We will save ourselves somehow. And that's something that, like, Lou, I don't know if Lou was a bad person before all this. He seemed decent enough. And he fought. And it was just, in a moment of, maybe he's about to get in a car crash, he swerves left. He doesn't get killed, but he clips somebody on the way.
Yeah.
Like, something like that. And I hope to see more of. I hope, like, the next episode isn't something that shakes us to our core.
So, Doggett, is there hope?
Oh, for this show? Oh, yeah, a third category. This episode makes me think so. It makes me think we got a shot, maybe. If we could all be this selfless. And
I agree.
I was like, rent's due soon, baby. Can I borrow like $500? I'll pay back to you in 7 months.
And that's all the time that we have for today on There's Hope, the Twilight Zone podcast.
This tie is made out of pure leather. Leather Davy.
I get my leather for different purposes.
But yeah, so like Lou at the end, you know, him and Def walking side by side, and Lou grabs his what's it called? That stand?
I don't totally know. I just the pitch
It's where he keeps
machine.
He keeps his inventory.
Yeah.
He grabs it. He's like, you don't know who's gonna want to buy some stuff up there, and he looks at Def, like up there, right? And like Def's like, it's not being coy about it. Like, yeah, you made it, and I guess that's like what the pitch is all about. Like that's the whole Don Draper of it all. We just want that confirmation, don't we? There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And at least in this one moment, in this one story, for this one individual who cheated Def, who legit did it, and took it back. That maybe he doesn't deserve the reward at the end, but it's there, and he's gonna get it. And I think that's just what we're all hoping for, right? Not eternal hell flame.
But maybe a nice cozy fire.
Yeah, hopefully.